Hello friends, my name is Nick, and today we're going to spotlight 5 plants that I did not expect myself to fall in love with as much as I am now. Most of these I've had a pretty rocky past with, but in today's climate we've been doing very well, and I would really like to see myself bring in some more of each of these into my home once I have the space. That's always our problem that we're having. But first, before we get started, I do want to let you guys know first 2 things. One, I recently started a TikTok, so you can go follow me over there at Philly Foliage for some more houseplant content. I'm just getting started over there, and I'm kind of just figuring it out, but I'm having a lot of fun. But I don't have that many followers, so help me out. And second, you might have heard this in my video last week, but I am collaborating with Steve's Leaves to give you guys 22% off any purchase for the rest of 2022. And you can use code PhillyFoliage or click the link below to get that discount. And I do receive a small commission for that, so you can support me whilst expanding your ever-growing houseplant collection with some wonderful houseplants. So to get started today, let's talk about my first one. Oh my god, I love them all so much, I don't know which one I want to spotlight first. Let's do this one because I feel like this is the houseplant that I feel like you guys know you're going to hear me talk about today, because I can't shut up about them lately. And that is ferns. I'm obsessed with ferns lately, and I hated ferns for years. Not aesthetically, I've always loved their aesthetics, but when I first got into houseplant growing, indoor gardening, I brought in a bunch of ferns. You have to stay up to date with watering these. It can be kind of a headache at first. Most of your houseplants you only have to water like once a week, but your ferns you do have to water a little bit more often, and some of them will be a little bit more vocal with you and they'll kind of wilt a little bit, but others will just crisp up immediately and turn brown upon the first underwatering. So I got burned once before. I didn't want to get burned again, so I really gave up on them for a couple years, except for my staghorn ferns, which I've never given up on, which I can't even tell you how many of them I had. But my last one has been doing very well. I'm feeling very confident. But this is a rabbit's foot fern right here. This is definitely a more frilly fern. I've always heard these to be more resilient ferns, but I would bring them home and they would crisp up and die. It wasn't until I tried growing this one on this wood slat here, and I did a video a couple months ago on how to make this if you are curious on how to make this project yourself. But it wasn't until I'd grown it on this board where I found some really good success with it. And I was kind of inspired by, every time I'm at like botanical gardens or even some more like greenhouse houseplant stores have their large ferns, usually a rabbit's foot fern, like hanging from the ceiling in these giant masses, and they're not really growing in any kind of soil medium. They're kind of just growing in what looks like moss or coconut coir or something unbeknownst to me. So I was kind of inspired by that to try growing this instead, similar to how I grow my staghorn fern, and have had some decent success with that, as I was saying. So this has really been exploding in new growth for me over the past couple months, which I've been really excited about. And it's given me faith to grow some other ferns in my home, which I've had a couple, like my blue star fern, which is kind of behind my shoulder back here, for a couple of years, and that one's been growing very well for me, although it hasn't been exploding in growth the way that this one is. But there are a lot of ferns that I've just been really getting a soft spot for recently, and one other one that I would like to feature today is this one that I'm so obsessed with this lately. So this is a Japanese holly fern, and I actually saw this right when me and my friend were leaving Florida when we were on our trip to Florida last year, and we were just like sitting waiting for our bus, and this was just a bed of these, and I was just like, I need this houseplant. So a couple of months ago I found it on a little houseplant outing, and I brought it home, and I was growing it in my kitchen, and I still am, but I've moved it over right next to my sink where these leaves are actually reaching into my sink because I'm just so obsessed with it. And does it get in the way a little bit when I'm doing the dishes? Yes, but I also kind of love it. So I just am so obsessed with this vibe. The planter is super cute. I still have it sitting inside its plastic nursery planter, and I filled up the bottom of this planter, which is a cash post, so it doesn't have any holes in the bottom, with leca pebbles. And I just sit this planter on top of the leca pebbles, and I overwater the plant, let's say, when I am watering it, so that some water spills into the bottom so that those pebbles stay wet. And as you can see, the roots have kind of worked their way down, just a way that I've been learning to care for my ferns that are definitely a little bit more needy when it comes to the moisture levels. But that is the #1 issue I've had with my ferns. But now that I'm getting that down and I'm getting a lot more comfortable with being on a watering schedule that my ferns enjoy, They are plants that I want to bring a bunch more into my home. I can just see hanging ferns all over my home. Well, maybe my next home because I can't really hang things in this apartment, but that is just such a vibe. Next, let's talk about one that I admittedly turned my nose up to for a couple of years. Sometimes in life you have opinions, and sometimes those opinions are wrong. And that's okay. That's how you learn. And I don't think I was very vocal about my distaste for this houseplant, but it was in my mind. But foliage anthuriums, or I guess all anthuriums have foliage, but fancy foliaged anthuriums, the ones that have these more peltate leaves with the crystalline veination. There's a bunch of them. This one right here is Anthurium magnificum, and these are very new to me. Like I said, hadn't really been into them. I would see these on Instagram, and I was always just thinking in my mind that these are probably like those houseplants that are just too beautiful to be true. Like there is some care aspect of this houseplant that I'm incapable of giving this houseplant what it wants. So I just always wrote them off. I've tried some other anthuriums. I have a, very small but slow-growing anthurium collection here in my home, so I'm starting to get my feet wet with them, but it wasn't until just a couple of months ago. I did a online plant shop with me video for logis.com, and it wasn't a collaborated video. It was just something I wanted to do on my own dime because I've purchased a couple plants from them in the past, and I really enjoyed them, and I hadn't bought from them for a couple of years, so I just took you guys along with me on the journey. And the people from Logis saw the video, and as a thank you, they sent me this Anthurium magnificum, because I'm pretty sure in the video I pulled it up for a second, but I was like, not today, beautiful, but not today. So yeah, it was a nice little surprise. Perhaps it was the law of attraction, which I firmly believe in. It's given me the confidence that these aren't as difficult as I thought. In fact, since then, I've even brought home an Anthurium clarinervium, which I featured in a video that we did just very recently, which you can see this new leaf right here that's grown since I brought it home. There's another little baby one right here. I just repotted this, so I don't know how well this baby one's going to come in. It might get a little funky in the process. And then there's also this other leaf right here, but they're just so beautiful. They're not nearly as difficult as I thought. I was kind of just like feeling like I was walking on eggshells with both of these at first when I brought them home, kind of expecting them both to just like turn yellow or something. But no, it's been smooth sailing. It's been a pleasant surprise. I'm still getting the care down. You can see I'm trying this one out in a Vanda basket, whereas this one's in a terracotta planter with some more like sphagnum moss heavy soil. There is a new leaf coming out, as you can kind of see, hopefully. I don't know if the camera's in focus or not, but I'm feeling good about these. I think we are going to have a fun little journey with anthuriums. They are a new plant for me, but I know that they are not new for most of you. I think I'm just kind of late to the party. But like I said, sometimes you just have opinions and you can't help it. And speaking of opinions, I think most of you have not a great opinion about the next house that I'm going to talk about, and I understand. I've been there, I've felt the same way before, but I just cannot get over air plants, and nobody likes them. I think I'm exaggerating a little bit. Not everybody dislikes them, but nobody really seems to care about them here on my channel whenever I talk about them, but they are just so gorgeous. This one in particular is my Tillandsia tectorum. I think one of the secret weapons for styling your air plants is to use a little mount like I have here. This is literally just a piece of cork bark that I glued a stick to. I put a couple pieces of moss in there to make it a little bit more decorative. And this Tillandsia tectorum is a really showy one because it gets these really like fuzzy trichomes. Wink, wink. I know what y'all are thinking out there. But this changes color when you water it. I'll put a little time lapse on screen. It turns green, and then as it's drying out, it gets that silver coloration to it again. So really just such a wonderful air plant. This one requires a lot of light. I grow this in my east-facing windows. In my old home, I even grew this in south-facing windows, but on this mount, I just put a little nail in the side of the window, like inside the frame, and I just have this hanging out there, basking in the sunlight. This one doesn't require that much water. This is definitely much more of a drought-tolerant air plant. It definitely grows in more like xeric environments, but this is just so cool. I don't understand why people don't like them. I also have another air plant mount with some air plants that are a little bit more, they need to be watered a little bit more often. This one right here is Tillandsia ionantha. I don't know what this one is. You can let me know in the comments if you're aware, but both of these require watering like once a week. I usually just throw these in the shower when I'm watering my mounted plants. It's just a one and done kind of thing for me, but this is also another way that you can display them with the stick glued to a piece of cork bark. I think this is just such a fun little craft. I really need to make a video on this, but obviously I made this back when I worked at the plant store, and I had some more crafts and supplies at my disposal, so I don't really have all of this just laying around my home, but you might be able to easily find all of this stuff at a craft store or a plant store, or more particularly probably like a pet store, like anywhere that sells like reptiles or care products for reptiles or amphibians. They probably have like cork bark and sticks and maybe moss and stuff. I think you're on your own with hot glue there. I would be surprised and concerned if they sell hot glue. But anyway, such a cool, fun way to display air plants. You don't need to just have them sitting on your shelf or something boring like that. There are some really fun ways to display them. And you do have to water them. Someone literally just commented on one of my videos recently, like, I love air plants because you don't have to water them, they don't need light. They need both of those, honey. They need both to survive. That's why you're killing them. So give your air plants more light, water them at least once a week. I just throw mine in the shower or spray them with a spray bottle like I said. Some people soak them, and you can do that. I don't like doing that. I've only had issues with that, but to each their own. And next, oh gosh, I have had a rocky relationship with this plant right here. So obviously I'm talking about groups of plants today, because I was in my mind and I was thinking of this video of just talking about one type of plant, but then I was like, this honestly applies for like the whole genus of all of these houseplants, because you get burned by one, you get burned by all of them. But you gotta learn from your mistakes. Also, I feel like I didn't say anything about the fact that I'm sitting in a completely different spot. I just felt like trying something new. I don't know how well I'm feeling about this situation. I'm feeling very man-booby over here right now, but I don't know, we might try out a couple different scenarios to see what looks best, but spare me your man-boob comments. I don't really need to hear it, but so this is a Calathea lancifolia, and I'm talking about prayer plants across the board, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the Anthuriums, but this is more of a I'm seeing you from afar and I don't want to mess with you because I'm scared, because I've been totally burned by prayer plants before, which are just also such beautiful foliage. And these really just bring you such a lovely tropical vibe. There's so many prayer plants out there. At one point in my indoor gardening career, I had like 25 to 30 different types of prayer plants. I have, I think, 4 now, and this one I just brought home like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so this one barely even counts. We don't even know if this is going to be as smooth sailing as my other 3. I have a Calathea orbifolia on my bedroom floor that's really been flourishing for me over the past couple of years, and that's been so nice to watch grow, because that was just like a dream wish list plant for me when I first got started with indoor gardening. And then my Stromanthi sanguinea is growing very, very well with those beautiful red and white leaves. Stunning. Absolutely love it, and that was one that I struggled with for a while. So I'm feeling hope with this one right here, and this is probably something that a lot of people experience with prayer plants. I think most people get into indoor gardening, they go to their local houseplant stores and they see a prayer plant and they think it's the most gorgeous thing ever. Like, they're works of art. Like, let's be real. Some houseplants are just plants, which I kind of like them better for that, but these are true works of art. You bring them home and then maybe 3 to 6 months goes by and suddenly your prayer plant isn't looking nearly as good as it used to. It starts to get some brown edges or brown tips, or the leaves are starting to turn yellow, or maybe you got some like spider mites going on, which is always something that I seem to struggle with. But right now we're doing well, so holding out hope for this guy right here. And after losing 20 plus prayer plants in the last couple of years, I was just not feeling them. But just seeing my prayer plants just really spin out some nice leaves that I just kind of never seen before really gives me hope. And it makes me remember you really have to hold on to these. There has been so many prayer plants that I brought home where they've been growing up decently well for a couple of months and then randomly they just die back completely and I throw them out. But the ones that I hold on to are the ones that I still have now because they grow all new plants and they look perfect and they are much more tolerant of the conditions that you have in your home because they're growing into the conditions that you have in your home. This one, for example, was growing in a greenhouse and I'm bringing it home and I don't have that same kind of humidity or possibly sunlight exposure that this was receiving in where it was growing all of its life. So it might struggle a little bit, but if it does die back, which you gotta remember, plants have like a will to live. Like they weren't created to die. Like they want to live. So they're going to try very, very hard. So if this is just feeling too tired and it's just kind of fed up, it might die back for me in a couple of months, but I'm just going to keep that in mind. I'll just move it to the back of the shelf, put it under the grow light, continue to water it, and then you might be surprised in a couple of months, you start to get some really beautiful plants coming up that are much more strong than they were before. So it's been a learning process. All of these plants have been a learning process for me, but this has really been a total 180 for me, where I really thought I had wrote these off for good, but now I've been going to houseplant stores and seeing these, and I'm like, I think I could just maybe try one more time. Third time's a charm, 6 times a charm in some cases. Oh my goodness, hello sweet pea. Oh, just in time before we talk about our last plant today, we have a muffin coming in. See, I feel like sitting on the couch here might get her more enticed to come over and say hello and come sit with us. Oh, hello sweet pea. Oh, I can tell you just ate because you feel like half a pound heavier. Okay, so the last plant, oh gosh, now there's cat hair everywhere. The last plant that I really didn't expect myself to be so obsessed with, but lately I can't get enough, is begonias. This one is pretty funky right here with these dark green leaves and then the red on the back side. This one's called Begonia erythrophylla, and this is one of the ones I've had for a longer time, just a couple of years now, and it's starting to really like creep over the edges of the planter and envelop it, and I just love the way it looks, especially with the red on the back sides of the leaves. That's just one of the characteristics I love most about houseplants, but this isn't my first begonia I ever got. The one that I first got was actually probably closer to like 4 years ago now, and you're gonna not be believing me when I show you this, that I've had it for that long. But this little guy right here I've actually had for 4 years, which this is Begonia, my special angel. I put this one outside for the past few years when I lived in my old apartment because we had like an outdoor courtyard, so I threw a lot of my begonias outside for the summertime. This one has been acclimating to growing inside last summer and over the winter, and I thought it was a goner at one point, but now we have a couple of beautiful leaves, so I'm really happy. I won't call it a comeback, but we will see. It was a huge, beautiful bush before, but I will accept this. And this, believe it or not, was actually one of the plants that I bought in to grow and sell for my Etsy store. Haven't heard that in a long time, of like a year into me doing this YouTube and social media endeavor. I did run an Etsy store for a couple of months where I sold houseplants and other houseplant related goods, and Begonia maculata was picking up in popularity, and I found these Begonia My Special Angels able to purchase to grow out, and I was like, that's close enough. And I really loved it. So this was my first step into begonias. I can still feel that I have muffin hair all over my face, but we will deal with that later. But the spots are just so gorgeous. They are nice and silver. It doesn't have that red or like purple coloration on the back that the maculata has, but I just love the sheer volume of the spots that are obviously much smaller and much more prevalent in comparison to the maculata. So just a similar but different one, but you can see just with these two begonias right here, just how similar but different they are with the asymmetrical leaves. So there's a lot to love just right here and there, but I've only really been getting knee deep, let's say, with begonias in the last year or so, since Steve's Leaves has sent me a couple of them in our unboxing videos, which you should check the last one we just did last week if you haven't seen it already. And just a second reminder that you can use code PhillyFoliage to save 22% on any purchase you make on Steve's Leaves for the rest of 2022. But it's just been so nice watching my little begonia collection grow slow but steadily, just like my Anthurium collection. And I'm excited to see how any new begonias I bring into my home grow. I'm really excited about these new ones from Steve's Leaves as well. There are a couple fun ones that are going to be a real joy to watch grow, so you should Once again, go check out that video if you haven't already. But I think that's going to do it for today's video. Plants that I really did not expect myself to fall in love with. If you told me this a couple of years ago, I mean, if you told me the prayer plants, I would be like, "Durr," but then I would have been like, "What? No, I hate them now." And then you get what I'm saying. We've all been there. But it was ferns, anthuriums, air plants, prayer plants, and begonias. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If you don't already, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Fully Foliage. Subscribe to my Patreon for even more houseplant content. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.